Good Friday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Stephen Romo in for Savannah Sellers today. Right now on Morning News Now, pomp and pageantry at the White House as President Biden hosts his first state dinner with a foreign leader, French President Emmanuel Macron. We'll bring you the latest on what they had to say about the war in Ukraine. Plus, a possible primary shakeup that's putting some Democrats at odds ahead of 2024. And crisis averted, a potentially catastrophic rail strike staved off by the Senate. The bill now headed to President Biden's desk, but it does not have a major union demand that many Democrats had championed. What's next for the nation's tens of thousands of rail workers? Also this morning, danger in the soil, cancer-causing chemicals found in one Houston neighborhood, and now suffering families are going after one of the nation's largest rail companies. We'll bring you their stories. Plus, one more chance for the U.S. men's national team in Qatar as America holds its breath before tomorrow's do-or-die match against the Netherlands. A lot going on, a lot of World Cup excitement. Can't forget that.
I feel like tomorrow afternoon is going to be what a lot of folks are doing.
Yeah, pretty big one there for sure. We'll get more of that. We begin this morning with the return of a diplomatic tradition as the White House hosted its first state dinner in 3 years.
Yeah, President Biden welcomed French President Emmanuel Macron to the White House for the star-studded affair. The event highlighted the deep, long-standing alliance between France and the U.S.
France was our first ally. First country to fly the American flag after our revolution. And Frank hosted the first diplomatic post before, more than anything else, France has been our first friend.
More on this. We're joined by NBC News correspondent Josh Letterman. Josh, good morning to you. So this was President Biden's first state dinner nearly 2 years into his administration. How is this one different from those hosted by other presidents? What was notable last night?
Hey guys, good morning. Well, it was notable for one reason because this was the first time there has been a state dinner at the White House since September 2019, before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this was really a return of the pomp and circumstance that has characterized these state dinners over the years, and a real opportunity to put the longstanding friendship between the U.S. and France front and center. It was designed after the shared colors of the U.S. and French flags, red, white, and blue, with guests served Maine butter-poached lobster, an American cheese array, wines from various countries. And it was truly a star-studded event with folks from the entertainment industry like Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Stephen Colbert, as well as Supreme Court Justice Breyer. We saw Republicans like Kevin McCarthy and Democrats like Nancy Pelosi all in the same room for this one special evening to celebrate the longstanding alliance and friendship between the U.S. and France.
Yeah, Josh, as you mentioned, that's sort of the main goal, is celebrating that long-standing relationship. But these are friends with differences, specifically over the Biden administration's signature Inflation Reduction Act. Explain that and how that was addressed.
Yeah, on the surface, the U.S. and France share the goal of quickly transitioning to clean energy. But France and other European countries have been upset about the way that President Biden's climate spending really has these protectionist Buy American provisions that say, for example, if an American's going to go out and get a subsidy from the government to buy an electric vehicles, it's got to be an American-made one. Well, guess what? The French make a lot of electric vehicles as well. French President Macron, very open as he came here to Washington about the fact that they were very upset about how that was going to affect and perhaps disadvantage their industries. President Biden acknowledged the concerns, calling them glitches, both leaders saying that they are working to sort of recalibrate the way their two countries can integrate their work on clean energy so that one's gains don't come at the deficit of another.
Josh, while we have you, I want to talk about one other thing coming out of the White House. President Biden's making some waves within his own party. He's recommending South Carolina replace Iowa as the first state in the Democrats' 2024 presidential nomination process. Our viewers might remember South Carolina is the state that really turned things around for Biden, making him a frontrunner in 2020. Things didn't go so well in Iowa in 2020. So what's the White House saying about this, and how are Democrats responding?
Well, everyone knew something was going to be coming after that debacle in Iowa during the last presidential caucuses that you were alluding to, Joe. But now the president, in a new letter to the DNC Rules Committee, is saying that what he wants to see is for South Carolina to go first in the presidential nominating season, followed by Nevada and New Hampshire sharing the second date before the contest goes on to states like Georgia and Michigan and others. President Biden saying that, look, black voters who are so critical to the electorate in South Carolina must be able to shape the nomination from the very beginning of the process and all throughout the process. It's also a bit of payback for a state that really helped President Biden's presidential ambitions come back to life after they seemed like they were so dead way back in that 2020 presidential nominating contest.
All right, Josh Letterman. Josh, thanks so much.
All right, let's turn now to Georgia, where early voting is wrapping up today ahead of next week's Senate runoff election. Both Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker have gotten a boost in recent days thanks to some support from party heavy hitters. Former President Obama was at a rally with Warnock in Atlanta last night, and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp has put his support behind Walker after choosing to not campaign with him leading up to the November election. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us now from a polling center in Marietta, Georgia. Vaughn, good morning. Good to see you. If you could walk us through what we heard from former President Obama yesterday. What was his message to voters in Atlanta?
Yeah, good morning, guys. First, if I could, look at this. You'd think it's Tuesday. Folks are voting. This is the last day of early voting here in the state of Georgia. The polls just opened up literally here at the top of the hour, and there are already folks waiting in line here just north of Atlanta. Former President Obama was here last night campaigning for Raphael Warnock. This is the second month in a row in which he is urging voters to get out and support the Democratic incumbent here. And he made the case also against Republican Herschel Walker, saying that folks should choose somebody who is deep into policy and is actually from Georgia. A slight against Herschel Walker, who has been a longtime resident of Texas. I want to let you hear directly from Obama, though, last night. Take a listen.
It's good to know that folks would prefer normal to Looney Tunes. That's a good thing. I'm here to tell you that we can't let up. I'm here to tell you we can't tune out. We can't be complacent. We have to run through the tape. And that means all of us doing our part to make sure that Raphael Warnock goes back to being the United States Senator from the great state of Georgia. And I know you can do it because you've done it before.
It is all about turnout for these two candidates now in this last-minute dash as we head into the weekend before Tuesday's runoff.
Coming up pretty quick here, Vaughn. And we mentioned that Governor Kemp is now campaigning for Walker, but why is he doing that now after he chose not to do that in the lead up to November?
Look, Brian Kemp is indisputably a popular figure here in the state of Georgia. He roundly beated Democrat Stacey Abrams by nearly 8 percentage points. And despite receiving the criticisms of the likes of Donald Trump earlier this year, the former president had called him a coward and a turncoat after he certified Joe Biden's win here in the state of Georgia. He's sort of this unique American political figure. He stood up to Donald Trump, but also nobody's going to doubt his conservative credentials. And that is where Herschel Walker is now looking to him to help boost his bid. But there were 200,000 voters that did not vote for Herschel Walker who did vote for Brian Kemp. And that is why this late bid from Kemp could help him out. I want to let you hear part of an interview and when I sat down with the governor just yesterday. Take a listen.
There were 200,000 Georgians who voted for you for governor, but did not vote for Herschel Walker, the Republican for the U.S. Senate. From your own assessment first, why?
Well, look, I personally don't feel like that's an issue in the runoff. You know, the runoff to me, this is a turnout election.
You've got to convince a good segment of those folks to come out and turn out and vote for Herschel
if they come
Walker.
back and vote. But you also had a lot of people that voted for the Libertarian that nobody's talking about. If they come out and vote, you know, I'd say probably 70, 80%, maybe even close to 90 of those folks would vote for a Republican and vote for Herschel. But, you know, those are all theories and distractions in my mind. We got to get our people out.
The governor is right, especially on one front, and that is that we don't know how Tuesday is going to ultimately go. There are a lot of voters here in the state of Georgia, a lot of folks that may have voted one way 3 weeks ago, but they've got a whole nother opportunity here in these final days before the Tuesday runoff.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what those split ticket voters in November choose to do this time around. Vaughn Hilliard, thank you.
On Capitol Hill, Congress passed legislation yesterday averting a national rail strike. The move spares the American economy from taking another hit ahead of the holidays. The measure, already approved in the House, forces a new contract on workers and freight rail companies who remained locked in a stalemate. President Biden has been pushing lawmakers to take action. He released this statement yesterday saying, quote, "I will sign the bill into law as soon as Congress sends it to my desk. Working together, we have spared this country a Christmas catastrophe in our grocery stores, in our workplaces, and in our communities." NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan, good morning to you. So, well, there were enough votes in the Senate for the bill to pass. There were some surprising divides here between lawmakers on this. It wasn't just some Republicans who voted no, so did some Democrats. I mean, tell us how this all played out.
Yeah, the best example that the political spectrum is a circle, not a straight line, Joe. We did see some odd political bedfellows in this vote yesterday. Many progressive Democrats voting no on the final bill because they were unhappy that element involving paid sick leave did not get into the final bill. And a few surprising Republicans voting for that paid sick leave package, including folks like Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, and Marco Rubio, ones that don't tend to normally agree with unions. But at the end, sum total of all of this is that it ended up passing with ease, averting what could have potentially been a massive economic problem during a very crucial time of the year. This agreement that was originally agreed to by a certain number of the unions, the Biden administration, and the rail companies will go into effect. And it will do so without that additional paid sick leave, although President Biden has indicated that fight is not over, and he's going to continue to work for that, not just for rail workers, but for all Americans, Joe.
It's worth noting Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders fist bumped. That's how strange this vote was. All right, so President Biden says the deal is an improvement for rail workers. So what are the new terms of this contract?
Yeah, there's no doubt that while the unions didn't get everything they were looking for, they did get some quite a bit of improvements to their contract. The 24% pay increase. They're going to get immediate payouts that average in the $11,000 range. They're going to get better health care benefits, and they'll get one extra paid day off. So that is better. But, you know, progressives have long argued that that is still not enough. And, Secretary Pete Buttigieg was trying to explain why sick leave is such a difficult thing to extend to rail workers because of the timing of how these engines have to be on the tracks and get to their intended destinations. Progressives really aren't buying it. There are a lot unhappy with the idea that the unions were forced to capitulate on this. So this fight over paid sick leave just started at this stage of the game and is going to continue on. And I should also point out, Joe, as you're talking about Ted Cruz fist bumping Bernie Sanders, this vote that many of these Democrats have, that's going to be something that many of these Democrats remind them of when they come back to the table again and talk about paid family leave across the board, not just for rail workers. They're going to remind Ted Cruz that he voted for this now, and why couldn't he vote for it in the future?
You're setting up my next question here, Ryan, which is about this sick leave issue, paid sick leave. I mean, is it going to resurface down the road? If so, when could that happen? How could it happen?
Yeah, it's going to, for sure, Joe. But it's not going to be specifically directed just towards the rail workers. In many ways, they've continued a conversation that's been happening on Capitol Hill for some time. Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, others have fought for a wide expansion in paid family leave and sick leave. It was part of the reconciliation debate that took place on Capitol Hill. This is something that Democrats have long thought is an issue that should be across partisan lines that could get both Republican and Democratic votes. Now, they couldn't get it passed when Democrats controlled the House and the Senate. So the idea that it's got a realistic shot of passing through a Republican-controlled Congress is slim, but the margin's only 4 or 5 votes on the Republican side. That's something maybe Democrats could push over the finish line. A lot of work to do in the new Congress, though, if it's going to happen.
All right, big vote yesterday, but more to come. Ryan Nobles, Ryan, thanks so much.
Now to the latest developments in the DOJ's investigation into former President Trump's handling of classified documents. A federal appeals court has dismissed the order that appointed a special master to review the documents seized by federal agents from Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. In their ruling, the appeals court said, quote, "We agree with the government that the district court improperly exercised equitable jurisdiction and that dismissal of the entire proceeding is required." The ruling now lifts the restrictions placed on the DOJ to review the documents it took from Trump's Florida estate back in August. The appeals court also said the ruling will take effect in 7 days unless the Supreme Court intervenes.
To the World Cup now, where tension and drama are set to take center stage tomorrow when the knockout stage of the tournament begins.
Yeah, you can feel the excitement. It's building for the USA's match against the Netherlands, with a place in the quarterfinals up for grabs. But the U.S. could be without star player Christian Pulisic, who hobbled off with an injury during the team's win against Iran. Here he is talking about his chance of playing in tomorrow's game.
I'm taking it day by day right now, and I will do everything in my power to work with this medical team and make sure that I can play. It feels great to score in a World Cup. Timmy knows what that's like. I think I'm hoping I haven't had that moment yet, to be honest. I'm hoping it's in front of me. So it feels great to be where we're at right now, but there's still more to come.
We're joined now by Matthew Slater. He is a senior soccer news reporter for The Athletic, so he's busy right now. Matthew, good to have you with us. So how badly does Team USA need Christian Pulisic? If they don't have him, can they win? If they do have him, can they win?
It's a very good question. He certainly helps. Look, I've seen the US play a couple times now this tournament, and I think you've got a really good team, really young, really hardworking, very athletic, nice structure. The problem you have, this is not unique to the US. Every soccer team has this issue, is putting the ball in the net and creating chances. And that's where Pulisic is your guy. That game against Iran was sort of fairly typical in that US were playing really well, clearly the team on top, but they just required a spark. And that's what Pulisic does. It was great movement. It was brave. And then, of course, he goes off, and then we saw what happened. And it's not the first time. Things get harder for the States. You got a little bit defensive, but I think you missed him. He is a very, very good player. And of course, every team would miss a player as good as Pulisic.
So this World Cup has been full of just so many shocks. Just yesterday, we saw some of the big hitters like Germany and Belgium crash out of the tournament. So what went wrong for these teams, and just how surprised are you from what we've seen from Morocco and Japan, who progressed in their places?
Well, I think with Germany, they were a bit unlucky. I saw, again, a couple of their games, and they were very good against Japan and somehow conspired to lose that one. Good game against Spain, and then, of course, they beat Costa Rica. So they were a tad unlucky. Again, a lack of that putting the ball in the net. Certainly in that Japan game, they created so many chances. I think there was an amazing stat that I think only 2 times in football history has a team completed 700 passes and managed to lose, and that was one of them. I think the other one was the Spain game, actually. That was a draw. So, look, they had a lot of possession. Belgium is a slightly different story. They didn't play very well. And I think that's the end of their cycle. They've had this sort of golden generation, and they just got old. And I don't know how happy the camp was. So, yes, 2 slightly different stories there. But you're right, loads of surprises. It's great. World Cups need that. And, it's certainly brought a lot of energy.
They got old. Now I feel old. All right, Matthew Slater, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the match tomorrow.
Well, former NFL wide receiver Antonio Brown is facing a new controversy in Florida. Tampa Bay police have issued an arrest warrant for the football pro in connection with a domestic battery incident. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has more.
The question is, when will Antonio Brown be arrested? The controversial NFL wide receiver has had a laundry list of legal issues and now is facing new accusations of domestic violence. Tampa police say they're trying to arrest former NFL player Antonio Brown, making multiple attempts outside this home to execute an arrest warrant for battery domestic violence. The department telling NBC News he's, quote, not communicating with police officers. It's the latest twist in the 34-year-old saga that's gone well beyond the gridiron. The charges stemming from an incident Monday involving Brown and the mother of 4 of his children. According to court documents, Brown threw a shoe at the woman, striking her in the ponytail. The victim had no injuries, but believed the shoe was meant for her head. In the same document, police describe learning Brown tossed the woman's belongings out of the house and then made threats via speakerphone, saying that if she got in the house, he would shoot her in front of police. It also says the kids did not want to go inside because they were afraid of their dad when he gets in these destructive moods. After the incident, a petition to remove Brown's guns and ammunition under a risk protection order was rejected by a Florida judge, citing lack of physical action. How is it possible there wasn't enough evidence to take his guns away, but there is enough evidence to potentially prosecute him for domestic violence?
The judge got this one wrong. The Florida statute that allows for these risk protection orders gives a series of factors that can be considered by the court. He met a number of them. Antonio Brown is a risk to not only himself, but to the members of the community and obviously to the mother of his children.
According to the petition, he kept 2 firearms in the house, a handgun and a rifle. NBC News has not been able to reach Brown's legal team for comment, as tonight he remains a wanted man by Tampa police. Tampa police tell me they're not going to risk officer safety for trying to execute a misdemeanor arrest warrant. Now, that said, if Brown's behavior escalates, so too could their response. As for the mother and her children, they have not returned to that home since the incident. Sam Brock, NBC News.
This morning, 6 million Americans are waking up to winter alert.
It's that time of year. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us now for more on that in your Morning News Now weather. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, guys. Great to see you. Yeah, we're waking up to winter alerts, wind alerts, also tracking some rain. We could see winds gusting up to 85 miles per hour in some spots. Some spots so chilly today, and then we also have a warm up in spots. So we're kind of all over the place. Let's start with the snowy side. You can see on radar where you see the blue, that is the snow falling. So it's pretty widespread from the Pacific Northwest into portions of the Southwest, the Intermountain West, the Northern Plains, and then eventually into the upper Midwest. And some spots could see up to 2 feet of snow. So winter alerts for 6 million people. Your winter storm warning, that is in the pink for portions of the Rockies, Sierra Mountains. We could see up to 2 feet of snow. Winter storm watch, that is in the blue, and a winter weather advisory is in your white. Wind alerts, very widespread as well into the Southwest, into portions of the Central Plains and Northern Plains, the Midwest, even creeping into the Ohio Valley. We're going to see winds gusting anywhere from 35, 45, 55, and as I said, up to 85 miles per hour, with 30 million people impacted. This is why we have a cold front that's moving through the country that's bringing the snow, it's bringing the rain, and it's bringing the wind and really chilly temperatures behind it. So snow in the Rockies and the upper Midwest, and then another storm system right on deck after this one into the Pacific Northwest. It's going to bring more widespread snow, mountain snow, and also the chance for more rain into California. So we could see some flooding rains throughout California once again. Notice the reds, the oranges, the yellows. So we're going to see heavy rain. We need it, but it's coming quickly, and especially in the burned areas, we could see the flooding. As far as the snowfall forecast, very widespread into the upper Midwest. Where you see those pinks and purples, that's where we're expecting the highest amounts of snow. So into the Rockies, into the Sierra Nevada mountain, highest elevations of the mountains, up to 2 feet of snow, Mammoth Lakes, Bear Valley, Lone Pine. And rainfall forecast, anywhere along the coast, we're seeing really heavy rain. South of San Francisco, into Santa Barbara, Fresno, Sacramento, we're looking at the chance for some heavy rain, even up to 2.5 inches in some spots. Let's talk about the temperatures because they're very divided across the country. We have chilly highs in the Northeast, below normal for this time of year. Chicago right around the freezing mark, 3 degrees below normal, 41 in Cincinnati, 36 in Buffalo, 48 degrees today in D.C. And then we're really warm just a little bit to the west. So this is going to move into the east as we head throughout tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures 50 degrees in Chicago tomorrow. That is 10 degrees above average. 68 in Oklahoma City. It's December. 71 in Fort Worth, Little Rock, 62 degrees. And this will move east. So into the Northeast, we're looking at temperatures starting to rise as we head towards Sunday and Monday. 64 tomorrow, but we're going to trade off with some showers and also some breezy conditions. Charlotte, we're looking at 55. So for today, plenty of sunshine, windy and warm throughout the middle of the nation, and heavy snow back behind that cold front into the mountains. Back to you guys.
All right, a little bit of everything. Thanks, Michelle. Coming up on Morning News Now, danger in the soil.
After the break, we'll take you to Houston, where dangerous cancer-causing chemicals are being found in one predominantly black and Latino neighborhood. And now people there are singling out an American rail giant as being responsible. Welcome back. Black and Latino families in Houston are filing new lawsuits linked to cancer-causing chemicals found in the soil. Local activists say an old rail yard is to blame for the high rates of cancer they're seeing. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson has a closer look at the history of that site and how it's now affecting residents.
Well, researchers have acknowledged potentially cancer-causing chemicals below the soil surface, but now a new discovery is raising concerns among residents in Houston's 5th Ward who've been sounding the alarm about this for years.
He loved to cook, and he loved to rap in the shower.
LaTanya Payne still clings to memories of her son Corinthian since he died of leukemia last year at just 13 years old.
It was hard. He was coughing up blood from his lungs. He was on dialysis. They tried everything, and nothing worked.
2 months after his death, LaTanya was diagnosed with breast cancer for the 2nd time.
Our community is suffering from this cancer cluster.
In 2019, state health officials found higher rates of certain adult cancers in Houston's 5th Ward. A year later, another bombshell. Children in the area getting leukemia at a rate nearly 5 times the state average.
The second report from the state health department was even more disturbing because that involved the children.
Right, but they never listed a cause.
They never listed a cause.
For years, the historically Black and Latino community has blamed the higher rates of cancer on the rail yard, now owned by Union Pacific, which sits blocks from many homes. Decades ago, workers used creosote to preserve wooden rail ties. That site shut down in 1984, but the chemical, believed by the CDC to cause cancer, leaked into the soil and groundwater, remaining under more than 100 homes and businesses, according to the Texas Department of State Health Services. Is this environmental racism?
Yes. Should it be occurring in any community? No.
Union Pacific declined NBC's request for an interview, but says over the past 25 years, they've implemented remediation efforts in the area, including installing more than 120 wells, removing impacted soil, and monitoring groundwater.
This house here, Mr. Don, he died from cancer. This lady here, her husband died from cancer.
Sandra Edwards lost her grandfather to bone cancer a decade ago.
I got a Ziploc bag full of obituaries from 5th Ward.
All cancer.
All cancer.
Edwards is a community activist. Why stay?
I have nowhere else to go. This is what I can afford. And my family worked hard to keep this house.
In September, a significant discovery. The Houston Health Department finding another likely carcinogen in the area, dioxin, this time on the soil surface.
The fact that we're finding dioxin in the surface soil where residents can be exposed to it is what's so alarming.
Union Pacific says, in part, the dioxin levels in the city samples are well below state requirements, and that attributing the contamination solely to their site is unreasonable and inaccurate. Lawyers representing families in the neighborhood say thousands have filed lawsuits against Union Pacific, including LaTanya Payne.
Like, compensation is not going to remove the crying at night, but the justice is when the ones at hand are held accountable.
With this latest discovery, officials in Houston are calling on Union Pacific to do more, saying that this can't wait. Back to you.
An important story there, Priscilla. Thank you. Well, now to more international news. China rolls back some anti-COVID policies in major cities.
NBC News foreign correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with that and other world news. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yes, there was a real sense of relief among residents in major cities like Beijing or Shanghai as China is finally easing some of its COVID restrictions, including testing requirements and quarantine rules. A resident in Beijing told Reuters that he felt the people's voices were finally being heard after protests against the zero COVID policy spread across China in the past few days. And let's move to Africa, where the first batch of Mpox vaccines donated by South Korea is expected to arrive in the continent. The Africa Center for Disease and Control said that health workers and people living in areas where Mpox has spread the most will be the first to receive the 50,000 doses. 202 people have died so far from Mpox in Africa. And if you want a taste of Christmas, head to the Museum of Architecture in London, where you'll find an edible gingerbread city. The exhibition is made of 5 miniature cities across 5 different climate zones: polar, continental, temperate, dry, and tropical. But instead of building blocks, they were built with donuts, biscuits, and plenty of icing, guys.
Sounds like breakfast. All right.
A delicious breakfast.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks,
Claudio.
Claudio.
Thanks. Well, coming up, President Biden's plan for student loan forgiveness is now heading to the Supreme Court.
The future of his administration's now blocked proposal, what it could mean for your loans after this. You're watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear arguments in a case challenging the Biden administration's student debt relief plan.
Yeah, the High Court set oral arguments for February, and the program will remain on hold until that case is heard.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos joins us now to discuss this. Danny, good morning to you. So first of all, walk us through the arguments we expect each side to make. What are the odds that the Biden administration can get this block taken away?
Anyone who's been following this who isn't confused doesn't know what's going on because it is procedurally complicated. But at this stage in litigation, everything can be boiled down to really 2 things. Number 1, standing, and number 2, the status quo. Because none of these courts have reached the merits yet. All of this battling is over what to do while the court, whether it be the Supreme Court or any court, decides this case finally on the merits. First, you have standing. Do these states even have any interest in this outcome to be involved in the litigation? Standing asks the question, whose beeswax is it anyway? And if it's not your beeswax, then you can't be in court suing about it. Secondly, the government, the Biden administration, is seeking to preserve the status quo with what's called injunctive relief. And courts say, well, look, if there's some emergency, if some awful harm will happen, if we don't pause the parties from doing something, we will issue an injunction. Here, both courts, at least so far in the proceedings, have decided that, well, it's probably better to preserve the status quo of what everyone has dealt with, which was paying back their loans or whatever the case may be for the last time immemorial, rather than allow the Biden administration's plan to go through, which would be a major change. So many different courts weighing in. That's the best way to boil it down, I think.
Beeswax, a legal term, right?
Beeswax is a Latin term, yes. We use it frequently in the law.
All right, good.
Of course, I thought so. And we also know this is not the only setback, though. A judge in Texas has also moved to block this, and a federal judge has decided not to stop that from going through. How does that affect this whole program?
Yeah, if you're keeping score, the Biden administration won in Missouri, then lost at the 8th Circuit. The Biden administration lost in Texas and then lost again at the 5th Circuit. At least by that count, Biden administration is 1-3. At least in their legal challenges. But the great thing about issues of law and appeal is that they're essentially reviewed de novo. The higher up they go, once they get to the Supreme Court, these cases all have a second chance at life. And the Biden administration is going to argue that the lower courts at least got it wrong in issuing injunctions. And on the merits, the Biden administration is going to argue that this was within the executive branch's power to do. By the way, all of this argument would be obviated if Congress had acted. The only reason we're in court is because there's an argument that the Biden administration exceeded its authority in the executive branch.
Let's ask the question that people who are repaying their loans are most interested in. There was a pause on when they have to repay until June. So when the Supreme Court hears this, when might we expect to have their decision? Would it be around June?
Oh, how often do we get asked, when will a court do something? And all I can say is, as a general rule of thumb, we don't know. Yep. But part 2 is, if it's super high profile, expect a little special treatment. If you're a run-of-the-mill litigant before the Supreme Court, get in line and good luck.
All right, Danny Ceballos, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, now to New York City, where Mayor Eric Adams is calling for homeless people judged to be too mentally ill to look after themselves to be removed from the streets, whether it's voluntarily or not. Local advocates are concerned about what help these people will get from the city. NBC News correspondent Tom Winter has more.
I want to talk to you about a crisis we see all around us. People with severe and untreated mental illness who live out in the open, on the streets, in our subways.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams says it's time to take action.
No more walking by or looking away. Going forward, we will focus on action, care, and compassion.
His goal is to help those suffering severe mental illness on the sidewalks and subways by removing them to hospitals, whether they want to go or not. This directive lays out the criteria for involuntary removal, which includes those who pose a threat to themselves or others. How do they plan to do this? By using the world's largest police and fire departments, working with mental health professionals to try and help those who may not be able to help themselves. The policy is raising eyebrows among advocates for the mentally ill.
Unfortunately, what the mayor's action does is play to the fear of people and the public and the desire to see those people either helped or out of sight.
Experts aren't just concerned about how people get to treatment, but what comes next.
At the end of the day, you can confine people as much as you want, but if you don't have a housing solution on the other side of it, you haven't done anything to solve homelessness.
California recently passed a law to enable loved ones to ask for involuntary removal of someone suffering mental illness, and Florida has had it on their books for decades.
There are also other places where even more ineffective systems are being put in place. So in Tennessee, it's now a felony to be homeless. In Miami, they were going to take all the homeless people and put them on the island. So there is this criminalization of homelessness that's kind of occurring, and it comes in different forms.
Mental health experts and civil liberty advocates are voicing their concerns over the involvement of police when responding to a mental health crisis.
The police don't even want to be the ones to respond here, and they shouldn't have to.
Rosenthal argues the mental health community is responding to the crisis through things like peer-led outreach teams.
You're saying, look, we've started on a small scale. We've got these new ideas and new programs. We need some time, and we need to bring them to scale to see how we're doing.
That's right.
Both men say the problem needs investment, which comes with added benefits.
When you provide the housing and allow people to manage their issues of behavioral health or substance abuse while they're in a housing unit, it actually reduces the cost to society by reducing costs for emergency mental health, emergency hospitalization.
The mayor and the experts do agree. It's about getting people help.
They have a right to health care, housing, and treatment.
Our thanks to Tom Winter for that report. The mayor's office, by the way, says additional training will be provided to first responders, a process, of course, that will take some time before those directives can begin. So far, no indication that the police department or fire department have been given any specific guidance on how to perform those involuntary removals. All right, to an ongoing mystery now. Nearly 3 weeks after the horrific murders of 4 college students, there's still no suspect in custody, no police sketch, and no murder weapon found.
Now, to make things even worse, contradictory statements from local authorities are adding even more confusion to an already painful situation. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has the very latest from Idaho.
New questions surrounding the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. Authorities saying they still believe the killings were targeted, pushing back on a claim made by a local prosecutor.
Is it fair to say you believe this was targeted, but you don't know if it was location or individual based?
Yeah, that's correct. At this point in the investigation, we have not really come to a conclusion whether it was the individuals involved or one individual, multiple individuals, or the location. We haven't made that determination yet.
But the families of the victims frustrated with no suspects named and no murder weapon found. Steve Gonzalez's daughter Kaylee was killed alongside her best friend.
How does it feel 3 weeks in here and to know that whoever did this to your daughter is still out there?
It's ridiculous. It's angering, you know. This amount of time, and I can't even get them to say that this is a man. We can't have that kind of closure with that guy still on the streets.
How fearful are you of this case going cold?
Well, the town likes to bring up the fact that there's very low crime. So there's not a lot of working knowledge there. This is what we're dealt with. This is what we got. This is the circumstances that we found. Let's make the best of it and let's move on. But the lead investigator, he's a true stud. He really knows what he's doing. So I put my trust in him, but he can't make evidence if it's not there. So I am very concerned.
Police are now turning to the public to help fill in a detailed timeline. But the families of the victims want more to be done.
I don't know what you're getting paid for if you're not communicating anything. You got to figure out a way to build a case off of what you release and still protect close detailed information that only the killer will know, but you have to help the community help you.
Our thanks to Morgan Chesky for that report. The Gonsalves family says that they will not hold a public funeral for their daughter out of concern her killer may try to blend in with the crowd. Coming up, a community initiative that is giving expensive menstrual products to those who need them most.
Yeah, after the break, we'll introduce you to the Virginia teens who are running it. Stick around. We're back now with some financial news, and Florida lawmakers are now trying a different approach to an ongoing feud with Disney.
CNBC's Pippa Stevens joins us with that and other money news. Pippa, good morning.
Good morning. Well, Florida is preparing a reversal on Disney's Don't Say Gay punishment, according to a new report by the Financial Times. State lawmakers are working on a compromise that would keep the theme park operators' special tax district in place with just a few modifications. Tax officials have warned that dissolving Disney's private government would shift the financial burden on taxpayers. Now, the feud erupted earlier this year after the state's new law restricting discussion of LGBTQ issues in classrooms. And Parler says its deal to be bought by rapper Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, has been called off. West had first agreed to buy the conservative social media platform in October for an undisclosed amount. Since then, West has come under fire for making multiple anti-Semitic comments, which have led to the collapse of several of his business partnerships. The news coming just hours before West was once again suspended from Twitter after retweeting an anti-Semitic image. And the post-pandemic beauty boom continues. Ulta Beauty is boosting its full-year outlook after posting strong third-quarter results. Spending was up across all income levels as shoppers continue to spend on beauty products despite those rising prices. You guys are no doubt going to Ulta all the time.
Yeah, you got to get that powder. You want to look good. Being out
Exactly.
and about now.
TV
Pippa
makeup.
knows. That's right. All right, Pippa, thank you.
3 Virginia teens are joining together to tackle what's known as period poverty in their community. They're buying menstrual products for those who may not be able to afford them and then donating them through a pantry they've created. NBC News correspondent Zincle Esamoah has more on what inspired these teens to give back.
Our period pantry supplies free pads and tampons to our community.
An unremarkable errand, buying tampons, led Ariana Gala to a remarkable idea.
I picked up like a box of tampons and I just told her, I was like, this is so expensive.
The 14-year-old recruiting her 2 friends, Ramsey Warner and Isabel Busher, to launch a free period pantry outside a church in Vienna, Virginia.
The pantry empties out pretty quickly, which shows how much of the need there is for the products. We've gotten a lot of donations and support that way, and we've also been surprised by how much it's been used by the community.
Since September, the friends filling this 2.5-foot-tall wooden cabinet with donated pads and tampons.
It hit home for us because we are girls and we know how important they are. I'm trying to, buy more things with my own money, but it's crazy that switching to buying my own pads and tampons would be such a big financial thing.
And it's a challenge many face.
Period poverty is the inability to purchase menstrual products in order to manage a period.
Jennifer Gaines of the Alliance for Period Supply says period poverty is widespread across the U.S., uniquely affecting low-income and marginalized communities and access to education.
Students who don't have access to these products will miss out on school.
1 in 5 teens say they have trouble affording period products, and 4 in 5 students say they've missed class or know someone who did because of it, according to a study sponsored by Thinks and nonprofit Period. Adding to the hefty price for a box of tampons, state sales tax. 22 states in the U.S. still charge a sales tax on menstrual products. Activists are pushing for a 0% tampon tax rate, but some lawmakers take issue with the idea. A 2021 bill to scrap Wyoming's tax on menstrual products failing after lawmakers argued all, quote, hygiene items should be included. State Senator Tom James telling the Casper Star Tribune, quote, it segregates and favors one sex over another. 17 states and Washington, D.C. have laws requiring free period products in schools, 2 of those requiring them in homeless shelters. Abroad, New Zealand and the city of Seoul offer school period products for free. Scotland making making history in September, becoming the first country to provide free period products to everyone.
They definitely modeled, what we can do here in the United States. And so we can't stop having this conversation by just ending the tampon tax.
Far from policy debates, Ariana, Ramsey, and Isabel are making an impact where they can, hoping period pantries will expand.
We hope our project will spread awareness about period poverty and inspire other people to take their own steps.
Zinclair Samoa, NBC News.
An important topic, Zinclair, thanks. Well, coming up, he's a legend of the links in the making.
After the break, we're going to introduce you to one young golfer who's using his love of the game to inspire kids just like him. That's up next. Welcome back. Another star shines bright on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and this is a good one. Billy Porter received the legendary honor yesterday. Porter has earned accolades for his Tony-winning performance in Broadway's Kinky Boots. Then he won an Emmy for his role in Pose, and that's on top of just being fabulous in every single way. Known for his red carpet fashion statements, he happily posed next to husband Adam Smith at yesterday's ceremony in a long, beautiful white ensemble. In his speech, Porter said, "I'm grateful to have lived long enough to see the day where my queerness is no longer my liability, but now is my greatest superpower." A wonderful message from a great guy.
Yeah, I love that. So much talent and so much style. It's not really fair, actually. All right, Joe, thanks for that. Yep. To this next story now, witnesses in Utah captured a terrifying moment. A base jumper slammed into a cliff before his parachute happened to snag on a ledge, suspending him in midair, but saving him. This whole thing unfolded while a family watched.
Incredible video showing a base jumper crash into a cliff in the middle of his descent, with his parachute managing to get stuck on the rock face, leaving him dangling in the air.
Oh my goodness.
This happened at Cane Creek Canyon near Moab, Utah.
For whatever reason, this jumper had a bad day.
Matt Lajeunesse, a member of the Moab Base Association, witnessing the terrifying accident on Saturday.
He's in a bad place. He definitely took a bit of a hit. Oh no.
Oh my God, is he just hanging there?
Mitch Edwards watching it all. He and his 12-year-old son can be heard on the video, shocked at what they witnessed.
Oh no.
Oh my God. Oh my.
Telling our affiliate KSL it could have been much worse if the jumper's parachute hadn't snagged on a ledge, saving him from plummeting farther.
Somebody from Search and Rescue climbed up the cliff, but that was amazing because there was no crack, no obvious route to get there. And so they had to set pins to get up there.
The family watched the Grand County Sheriff's Office search and rescue team work to get the jumper down, estimating that it took about 2 hours.
Somebody miraculously got up there and then, got the guy, but got him on another rope and lowered him down to the ground.
He was able to say, "Hey, I'm okay. My leg really hurts."
The sheriff's office telling KSL their ropes team did manage to save the man and that he was airlifted to a hospital. Lajeunesse telling us the jumper now has a broken leg.
They were able to get him from a cliff face to a helicopter to a hospital in a couple hours. That's really remarkable, super impressive work on their end.
And another interesting note to all of this, many base jumpers had actually gathered in Moab for the holiday weekend to attend an event there. And the Facebook page for that event, they were actually fundraising for the same search and rescue team who ended up saving that jumper.
We close out this hour with the remarkable story of a young sports prodigy who's using the game of golf to overcome his own challenges and inspire others just like him. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt has his story.
Finally, he's in the pages of Sports Illustrated, even has his own clothing line. But for one inspiring young athlete, golf is so much more than a game. The game of golf teed up a new world for 11-year-old Carter Bonas.
The first experience playing golf was really amazing, and I just like hitting the golf ball.
Before he started playing, Carter was struggling. He says he was bullied at school and having trouble engaging socially. Carter has a form of autism.
Carter's type of autism is high-functioning Asperger's. He is able to communicate, but his social skills are not where they should be.
Medical experts say some kids with Asperger's tend to focus all of their energy on one thing at a time. Carter used that to his advantage on the golf course.
Golf definitely helped me with my anger management, and when I had a bad day, I would just go to the golf course, and that made me feel nice.
Golf really did save his life because now he had something to look forward to, something that he was good at.
Carter was just named Sports Kid of the Year. He hopes to one day play in the PGA and has his own clothing line. Part of the proceeds, Carter donates to an organization that helps families and children with autism.
It feels amazing that I can help other kids because I really want to help other people if they need help.
A young role model hoping to inspire other kids just like him.
And I will continue to be a good advocate and telling people to stay positive.
For more of Carter's story, tune in to this Saturday's Nightly News Kids Edition here on NBC.
All right, our thanks to Lester Holt for that inspiring story. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But your news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.